Good morning, guys. Welcome back to Heather Rants. We don't really rant, but when people don't like what you have to say, they think it makes you sound like you're the unhinged one if they say that you're ranting. So, on today's topic, the governing body of Jehovah's Witnesses have made some, extremely significant changes in their shunning policies. Now, this is going to be a video where I kind of it's going to feel like I'm going all over the map because we were kind of raised in a black and white thinking pattern. But the reality is, this is a multi-spectrum thing. Life is a multi-spectrum thing. Let's just be real. It's not black and white, one thing connected to another. There's a lot of influences from many directions. But anyhow, so first and foremost, let's talk about what these changes were. You're allowed to invite family members who've been disfellowshipped to meetings. You're allowed to greet them at the hall at meetings. You're allowed to encourage them to come back. The elders should be checking in with a disfellowshipped person within 3 months. And every 6 months after that. The only way you don't get contact is if you're a quote-unquote known apostate. These are some pretty significant changes. And all these Jehovah's Witnesses, the PMEs, physically and mentally just changed their mind overnight. Overnight, they changed their mind. All of a sudden, it's okay. Some man in a position of power gave them the okay. And if you try to point this out, that's really great they're making these changes, I wonder what brought it up. Well, as we get closer to the end, this is the common theme I'm seeing. As we get closer to the end, the light gets brighter and brighter, and God's organization gets greater and greater. But here's the thing. God never changed, first off. The whole reason that Jesus came back and, had the righteous rage that he did was because people were unkind. They were abusive. They had lots and lots of rules. They were taking liberty upon themselves that they didn't really have the right to have. And turning what should be a community that serves its community into a monetary thing. The Jehovah's Witnesses don't in reality do a whole lot of, storm relief. They don't do any food pantries. They don't do anything. The group is expected to help the group. But the head of the group just takes in all the money and decides where it goes. And when they have storm relief, they go to the Jehovah's Witnesses in good standing, who they get their stuff fixed in a timely manner. But they also have to sign over their insurance check, which their house is fixed. But what about all the belongings that were in that house? It doesn't make sense. They don't do a whole lot. And I feel like I'm really off track. But the reason that Jesus had the righteous rage that he did was because they had so many rules. They took so many liberties. They were oppressive to their people. They were unkind. They did have emotional brutality going on. And they turned the community into a place of merchants. That's why he got mad and was throwing a whole freaking hissy fit, throwing tables and yelling at people in the synagogue, or whatever you want to call it. But God never changed. So their rationale for changing now is that, they want to be more in line. They read things in context, which, they explain things in context and use the language. Like, if they were making rules that caused people to commit suicide because it was so outrageous and cruel, should they not have checked the context, like in 1976 when this started getting nasty? Should they not have checked the context way back when? Now here's another point. They didn't used to shun. 1954. Now I'm working off of pure memory. My life is crazy. I don't have time to get the exact references. You can verify what I'm saying. I'll tell you if I'm not sure. But I want to say it was 1954. They published an article chastising the Catholic Church about how shunning is a tool. It's a manipulator. It's a punishment. It's pagan. It's pagan in origin and it's cruel. I believe it was 1976, after 1975 fell through and they had to get control of the organization, they started introducing disfellowshipping and trying to justify it with probably the same scriptures that they used. I don't know. I believe it was 1976. I'm not totally sure. But in 1981, 95% sure of that one. In 1981, it became an unforgivable offense to leave the organization. You became an apostate. Nobody would be allowed to talk to you ever again. Former members became lepers, essentially. And now they're rolling back. This is yet another topic where the governing body has flip-flopped. I don't find that ironic because when Anthony Morris gave all of his brutal talks on this stuff, he kept referring to it as a decree. A decree, by definition, is a man-made law by a lesser authority. So when they kept saying the governing body has decided, or we've read this in context. You should have read this in context a long time ago when people kept telling you and people kept trying to show it in court. People are dying over how cruel this is. You should have read it in context a long time ago. There's a reason why people are still mad. Now, I'm going to just say it. Every single religion in the world has probably got a shady history somewhere, and this will be part of their shady history. But right now, we still have a right to be mad. I tried to pay the ultimate price for my sins. I know plenty of other people who are former Jehovah's Witnesses that tried to pay the ultimate price for their sins. I know people who died attempting to pay the ultimate price for their sins. I know physically and mentally and Jehovah's Witnesses who did the same thing, but because they were so devastated that their own family did it. It happened locally. There were people that were just so devastated by losing their family and not having context, not having support to get out of addiction and depression and things that we were bullied into believing that were terrible. Counseling was voodoo, hoodoo magic or some bad juju mix, something. They were going to, I don't know, mind control us and turn us into zombies for Satan or something. I don't know what the freak they believed. But people died because they had a poor perception of what counseling and therapy and rehab really was, and because their family wouldn't support them either. They were left to pull themselves up by their bootstraps when they had nothing left to pull pull by. So they were just essentially shredding their own flesh, pulling themselves up by their Achilles. They died. People died over this stuff. Why did you not read it in context before? But why are they doing this? Well, here's where we're going to go off on what's going to feel like a whole separate tangent. Anthony Morris was the one that said they would never change it. He was the one that always gave the most gruesome talks and the most bizarre and extreme examples and rules. He was the one that did most of those. Nobody knows for sure why he was removed, but if you wanted to bring it up with your Jehovah's Witness family, you know, you could be like, you know, I'm really curious why Anthony Morris was removed from the governing body, because there's only like 2 other times, I think that's right. There's only 2 other times where the governing body members didn't serve until their death. So why was he removed? And I felt like we were all sitting around waiting for the local needs talk, like after somebody gets disfellowshipped, and now they're changing all the shunning rules. Now they're saying it was unkind, it was barbaric, it was psychological abuse, and Jehovah is a kind and patient and loving God. But they also had watchtowers where they said that deceivers and imposters have made it into high levels of the organization. So maybe that's why he was removed. And essentially what's happening now is like the local needs talk. This is kind of the way I see it. Like the organization found an imposter and a deceiver, and they're fixing stuff. You know, I don't want to hate these people. I know what it is to be brainwashed. Like, I believed this stuff. And I don't want somebody to hate me for who I was when I was a terrible, judgmental person. But in trying to phrase it in a way that your Jehovah's Witness family can understand it, like, maybe that's a good discussion point. But we do have a right to be angry. We have every right to be angry. That's like leaving an abuser and taking all the hits and the beatings because they maligned your, like, reputation. And all of a sudden they got counseling, they got help, maybe they got diagnosed with something that made them aggressive. That's great for them. I'm glad they're doing better. But after everything that happened to me, you know, I believe that they have the capacity to be a good person, but I can't be with them. It's the same thing. And we're allowed to stay angry. We're allowed to make the choice not to forgive them. They're men after all. It's an organization after all. Jesus said nobody gets to the Father except through him. They didn't say through him, through the, like, you don't need a mediator to get to Jesus. He is the mediator to God. The other aspect of this, because this is probably coming from multiple angles, a lot of the apostates are becoming more well known. They're making it to the news. It's becoming more well known that this practice is real. It's getting harder to say these are just disgruntled people, which, by the way, if somebody ever said, you know, that's just a disgruntled former member, or a disgruntled former employee, or a disgruntled former anything, ask them why. Why would they go that far out of the way? But they're more well known. The public knows. They're also in court. Norway, Russia, Europe, all over Europe. They're all over the news in Pennsylvania. More people are, like, the internet is probably going to destroy this organization if they don't change. Because, let's be honest, it's connecting people. People whose stories were not known are coming out. They're finding each other. They're realizing that they're not alone. They're finding strength in numbers, and they're finding a voice. Think about it. Like, rare, debilitating illnesses are finding community. They're finding support groups. They're finding one another. People are becoming more aware and more empathetic just for the virtue of knowing that these people are out here and they are actual human beings that deserve accommodations too. The same thing is happening for us. And they can't hide that. It's too late. They're being exposed. Now, technically, when you look at it in writing, it all sounds peachy keen and nice, but like there's still more changes that need to happen. This is not enough. And even if it was enough, we still have a right to be mad. We still have the right to be furious because of how much they destroyed their lives. And even if they do change everything, they will still never apologize for the damage that they've done. They're going to blame God for not giving them light in his own time. Like, it just wasn't time yet. We don't have anything to be sorry for. Well, you do everything else in context. Why not that? It's ridiculous. What are they going to do? Oh, we were just dumb. We didn't read it in context. The same way with the locusts. Yeah, that's going to sound real smart. These are the people that you want to lead you in your, like, salvation? Okay. Ugh. Whatevs. Whatevs. But yeah, it's another flip-flop. It's a PR stunt. It is something that they're forced to do in order to get their money because, you know, it is about the money. Like, and we do have a right to be mad even if they fixed everything all at once. Even if we woke up tomorrow and everything was fantastic. My grandfather told my aunt that he'd be willing to have a conversation with me if one of the elders that he trusted was there to mediate. Because he wants to believe I'm this god-awful person. And that he needs somebody there to protect him, I guess. He thinks he knows me just by the simple fact that I have a label. But here's the thing. We are not the same people we were back then. A lot of us has healed. A lot of us has gone through a lot of pain. A lot of us have grown and evolved as people. Our thought processes are different. Like, there's so many different spectrums and directions from which this can change. And there might even be another follow-up video to this because I didn't cover all my points. This is a big topic. But it's not as simple as God's organization improving as you near the end. It's not that simple. It's not as simple as, you know, they had a lot of court cases. It's not just court. The internet is going to wreck this organization if they don't start fixing stuff. It might be too late. But on the next topic, they also said that the apostates would still not get any of the allowances on these changes. So if I don't do a follow-up to cover something I feel like I didn't cover here, we'll talk about that apostate comment next and how that rule didn't change because I find that interesting also. But I gotta go. Y'all remember, if you ask enough questions, you can be an apostate too. Have a good one. I will see you later.